If you keep your money in a U.S. bank account in your name personally, you need to understand something your banker will never tell you. Your accountant probably doesn't know, and most attorneys are frankly too polite to say out loud. Your U.S. bank account is not your vault. It is a legal liability with a routing number. And the moment someone wins a judgment against you, that bank is legally required to cooperate with your opponent, not because they want to, but because they have to. So that is what we're breaking down today. I'm the business guy from the Lawyers Limited Law Firm and Asset Protection Planners. I've spent 35 years helping business owners, real estate investors, physicians, and high net worth families protect what they've built. And in that time, the single most underestimated vulnerability I see across all of those clients, across all of those years, is the U.S. bank account sitting in someone's personal name or an unprotected domestic entity. People protect their operating business, they insure their properties, they build estate plans, and then they leave 6 or 7 or 8 figures in a checking account under their own Social Security number and assume that's fine. It's not fine. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why, and more importantly, what well-protected affluent people do differently. Now here's the belief I want to dismantle today because it's costing people real money. The belief that keeping money in the United States in an FDIC-insured, federally regulated, major brand American institution is the responsible, safe, and strategically sound choice. For most financial decisions, that instinct is reasonable and not wrong. But in the context of a lawsuit, a judgment creditor, or a competent plaintiff's attorney, that belief is one of the most expensive myths in modern wealth management because the very regulation that protects your deposit also creates a direct legal pipeline from your account to the opponent's law firm. And no one in the banking relationship is going to volunteer that information to you. So let's go ahead and walk through what actually happens, not in theory, step by step in real time using a realistic scenario that is based on patterns I've seen repeatedly in 35 years of practice. A judgment has been entered against you. Maybe it's a business dispute that went sideways. Maybe it's a construction defect claim on a property you developed. Maybe it's a personal guarantee you signed years ago on a commercial loan, a slip and fall on a rental property, or a medical malpractice claim that exceeded your coverage. The origin doesn't matter. What matters is that a judgment exists and it is signed by a judge. At that moment, the clock starts ticking. And within 24 to 72 hours, here is what a competent plaintiff's attorney can do to a U.S. bank account. First, they file a writ of garnishment or a writ of execution targeting your bank, not you, the bank. They don't need your permission. They don't need to notify you in advance. They file the paperwork with the court clerk. The sheriff or process server serves the bank directly, and the bank is legally obligated to respond. If your account balance falls within the scope of that judgment, the bank freezes the account, often within hours of receiving service. You cannot wire the money, you cannot withdraw it, you cannot move it to another institution. The account is locked while the legal process plays out. And in most states, that process favors the judgment creditor, not you. The burden is now on you to demonstrate why your money should not be turned over while the clock is running and your operating reserves are frozen. Second, and this is the part that catches even sophisticated, experienced business people off guard, the bank has no fiduciary duty to fight for you in this situation. Their legal obligation runs to compliance within the court order. The same institution you have trusted with your deposits for 15 years will hand that money over without hesitation. Not because they're betraying you, but because they're legally mandated to do exactly that. And there's no escalation path. There's no manager you can call. There is no relationship you can leverage. The court order governs and the bank complies. That's how the system is designed to work, and it works efficiently. Okay, now let me add one more layer to this that most people don't consider until it's too late, an asset search. The kind of plaintiff's attorney orders before or immediately after a judgment costs a few $100s and takes 24 to 48 hours. It will surface your personal bank accounts, your brokerage accounts, any real estate you own, vehicle registrations, and the ownership structure of any domestic entities linked to your name or social security number. And by the way, I might add, that's getting easier and easier with the advancement in artificial intelligence. The attorney doesn't have to guess where your money is anymore. The data is there. And if you have a personal account at a major U.S. bank, it will appear in that search and it will become a target before you've had a chance to respond. So that is not a hypothetical. That is a standard workflow in collections and post-judgment enforcement. And if you appreciate this kind of information, please click the like button so to promote this video. Many thanks for that. And click the subscribe button if you haven't already so that when more videos come out like this, you'll get notified. And if you want to protect your bank accounts and liquid assets from a future creditor attack, or you just have questions, you can visit us at assetprotectionplanners.com, and there's a lot more free information there. Now, I want to be specific about one myth that underlines all of this because I hear versions of it regularly from clients who come to us after something has gone wrong. The myth sounds like this: I've set up LLCs, my assets are protected, and on the surface, that sounds right. Domestic LLCs absolutely serve a purpose. They create a layer of separation. They limit direct personal liability in many contexts. But a domestic LLC, a Florida LLC, Delaware LLC, Wyoming LLC, exists under U.S. law, and it is subject to U.S. court jurisdiction. A charging order can be placed against your membership interest in that LLC. And in some states, courts have allowed creditors to reach through single member LLCs entirely through a doctrine called reverse veil piercing. And your operating account for that LLC, if held in a U.S. bank account under the LLC's name, is still reachable through post-judgment enforcement proceedings. The protection has limits that most people, and honestly, many general practice attorneys, don't fully appreciate until they're staring at a freeze notice. There's also something worth addressing that I hear from clients who work with private banks or wealth management divisions of large institutions. They believe the sophistication of the relationship offers some protection. It doesn't. A private banking officer cannot override a court-issued writ. A long-standing relationship with a wealth advisor at a major firm does not insulate your account from post-judgment enforcement. I have personally spoken with clients who were genuinely stunned to discover that their private banker, someone they had worked with for a decade, picked up the phone and called them after the freeze, not to fight for them, but to explain apologetically that the bank had no choice. That call is not a failure of loyalty. It is a demonstration of exactly how the system works and exactly why the ownership structure of the account matters infinitely more than the brand name on the building. So what do well-protected people actually do? Let me walk you through the structure clearly, because the mechanics are not complicated once you see them. The most effective legal tool for protecting liquid assets, including bank accounts, brokerage accounts, and operating reserves, is a Cook Islands trust that owns a Cook Islands LLC, and the Cook Islands LLC in turn holds the bank account. So I want to explain each piece of that structure because the sequence really matters enormously. A Cook Islands Trust is a legally recognized asset protection trust governed by the law of the Cook Islands, a jurisdiction in the South Pacific that has for decades maintained statutes that specifically refuse to recognize foreign court orders compelling the trustee to distribute assets. This is not a loophole. It is a statute. The Cook Islands International Trust Act, codified law, establishes that a creditor armed with a U.S. judgment cannot simply walk in and demand those assets to surrender. To even attempt to pressure assets held in a Cook Islands trust, a creditor would need to retain Cook Islands counsel, re-litigate the underlying claim in the Cook Islands courts under Cook Islands law, meet a higher burden of proof, and do so with a specific statute of limitations that begins running from the date of transfer, not the date of the lawsuit. The cost of that pursuit is significant. the probability of success is low, and the plaintiff's attorney does the math. I've been setting up Cook Islands Trust for nearly 30 years. Our firm has set up more of them, they tell us, than any other firm in the world. And I say that not to impress you, but because the volume of what we've seen gives us data sets that most practitioners simply don't have. And what that data consistently shows is that the presence of a properly structured Cook Islands Trust fundamentally changes the negotiating position in litigation. When a plaintiff's attorney discovers that liquid assets they planned to leverage are sitting inside of a Cook Islands Trust, the tone of the conversation shifts. The economics of pursuit shift. Settlements that were going nowhere suddenly become achievable on terms that make sense for the client, for you. Now, the structural nuance that most people miss, and this is worth slowing down for, is that the trust owns an LLC, specifically a Cook Islands LLC, and that LLC holds your bank account. So you, the client, serve as the manager of the LLC during normal times. You have full practical control. You can access the account, make investments, move money in and out. Nothing in your day-to-day financial life feels different from your current arrangement. The trustee is a licensed, bonded company, law firm in the Cook Islands, and during calm periods, they're essentially dormant in your life. They hold the trust document. They monitor for triggering conditions, and they wait. When a legal threat is triggered, a lawsuit is filed, a judgment is entered, a creditor makes a move. The trust structure activates. The trustee steps in, management of the LLC transfers, and the account is now owned by the entity that operates outside the reach of U.S. enforcement mechanisms. A U.S. court cannot compel a Cook Islands trustee to distribute assets any more than a Cook Islands court could compel a U.S. judge to change a ruling. The jurisdiction doesn't cooperate on these matters, and that non-cooperation is not a bug, it's a design. So let me give you a composite scenario drawn from the kind of cases we work with regularly. A real estate developer, I'll call him Michael, has been in the business over 20 years. Multiple properties, active LLCs, a construction company, and approximately $900,000 in a personal operating account. He used his liquidity reserve between deals. Michael was not unsophisticated. He had insurance. He had LLCs for his properties. What he didn't have was a structure that could protect his liquid reserves once those entities came under challenge. A dispute with a subcontractor escalated into litigation. The opposing attorney ran the standard asset search within the first week of filing, and they find Michael's personal account. They had a judgment 14 months later. They served the bank within 48 hours of the judgment being entered. The account was frozen by the end of that business day. So Michael called us that evening. We helped him, and we were able to mitigate the situation. But the window for ideal positioning had already passed. The outcome was more expensive and more stressful than it needed to be. Not because Michael was careless, but because the structure wasn't in place before the threat materialized. Now contrast that with a physician client, that's Dr. Renata, who came to us 6 years before any legal trouble was on the horizon. She understood that her specially carried exposure. We built a Cook Islands Trust. We built a Cook Islands Trust owning a Cook Islands LLC, which in turn held her liquid reserves. 3 years later, a malpractice claim exceeded her policy limits. The plaintiff's attorney performed the standard asset search. They found a Cook Islands LLC. They made only one inquiry through an international counsel, received a frank assessment of what pursuing that structure would realistically require, and the case settled within her coverage limits. Her reserves were never touched. She went through the entire process without losing her operating capital because the architecture was in place before the weather changed. That contrast, Michael versus Dr. Renata, is not about intelligence. It's not about wealth. It's not about having better legal counsel at the moment of crisis. It's entirely about timing and structure. Okay, here's where I want to be direct with you because most videos in this space pull their punch at this moment. And I'm not going to do that. You cannot establish an offshore trust after a lawsuit has been filed and expect full protection to apply retroactively. You can still do it and it can still protect you. But what I'm saying here is the cost goes up and the options narrow. So you can still set it up after the case, but your options narrow prices increase because of the higher risk. The law recognized what's called a fraudulent transfer, the deliberate movement of assets to avoid a creditor you already know exists. Courts look hard at the timing of transfers relative to the existence of legal threats. A structure established 5 or 6 years before a dispute is presumptively legitimate. A structure established 6 weeks before a judgment gets scrutinized intensely. That can still protect you, but I bet you'll face a lot more scrutiny. So the window is not unlimited. It does not stay open indefinitely. And what that means practically is that the protection should be in place, not planned, not considered, in place, funded, and maintained before the legal climate shifts. The most expensive sentence I hear in this business consistently across 35 years is, "I've been meaning to call you about this." By the time somebody says that sentence, the window has usually narrowed significantly. The clients who sleep well through litigation are the ones who treated their liquid asset protection the same way they treated their estate plan, as a long-term infrastructure decision made during calm and not an emergency measure taken during crisis. The takeaway from everything that I've walked you through today is this. The question is not which bank you use. The question is what legal entity owns your bank account. And it needs to be an offshore bank account because no matter what kind of fancy trust you have of the bank accounts in the U.S., a judge has control over it. A Cook Islands trust owning a Cook Islands LLC can hold an international bank account or investment account. The protection is geographic and it's structural. And that is the core insight that separates people who come through litigation intact from people who don't. Not luck, not better lawyers after the fact, not more insurance, structure. Established in advance with the right architecture. So if this is the first time you've seen this laid out clearly, that's exactly what this channel is for. You can visit us at assetprotectionplanners.com. Even if you've seen this information before, you can still visit us to learn more about how these structures work, see real examples, and connect with our team if you want to have a conversation about your own situation. If you're serious and not just curious, you have $500,000 or more in liquid assets, there's no pressure, no obligation, just a firm that's been doing this work for longer than almost anybody in the industry, staffed by people who understand your financial security is a serious matter and deserves serious attention.